Thinking about buying a house in Texas? Well, you may want to hold off before you sign that contract.
There are a ton of things that can cost you thousands of dollars. In this video, we're going to be talking about 10 of those.
There are plenty of hidden costs, sneaky mistakes, and things that are downright illegal that can get you screwed whenever you buy a new home, and you're not going to want to miss any of these.
Yeah, these can have you stressed out for years, cost you thousands of dollars, and you're not going to want to miss number 2 and 10. They're absolutely just crazy.
Even something as innocuous as, well, this tree in your yard right here. Now, the very first mistake you could make has nothing to do with the house itself, but it could be the most costly mistake you ever make. I'm talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you're not going to believe how easy it is to mess this up when I tell you. Picture this: you just bought a brand new house with a beautiful yard, but your neighbor doesn't do their end of the upkeep, and it started to grow over your fence line. Wouldn't it be nice if you could just take all the things that are getting in the way and just do this? But that may just be the biggest mistake you ever make. What a lot of people don't know is whenever you buy property, you're not just buying the land under your feet, you're also buying the air over the property as well. And not just that, but also the right to clear it of tree branches, even if they don't belong to a tree that you own. But there's a caveat to that, and it could land you in court. So while you can trim tree branches that hang over your property line, even if it's your neighbor's tree, you need to be really careful, because if you trim too much, you might kill the tree. And if you don't know, trees are expensive, especially big ones like this could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars in reparations if it dies. So here's where it gets really sticky, because you can't use that wood that you trim from your neighbor's tree because, well, that could be considered theft. And oddly enough, so could this. Remember whenever you came home from school and you used to pick fruits from the neighbor's tree on your way back home? Well, that could land you in some hot water. But the part where it gets really tricky is whenever you have a neighbor that has a fruit tree that hangs over your yard. What if that fruit falls off the tree into your yard? Can you legally eat the fruit? Well, that's going to be up to you guys to decide, so let us know what you think, because even lawyers can't figure that one out. Now, what if they're 100% undeniably your trees and you just don't want trees on your yard anymore? Well, you need to double check and make sure that they're not a protected class, because otherwise the government may come and get you. Speaking of which, if you don't want the government turning off your utilities, you're going to want to figure out what this next thing is.
This next one is crazy. I don't even think it's right, but it could happen. So a while back, we had a client that bought a house. They went through the normal inspections, right? You come in, you have your inspector, you check all the light switches, you make sure the AC is working, you check all the doors, make sure stuff like that doesn't happen. And they did all of this. They did their negotiations, sellers repaired a bunch of stuff, moved in, and all of a sudden they tried to turn on their utilities. Government's like, no, we want to come in and check out your house before you can live in it, before they'll turn the utilities on, which I don't think is right. You bought the house is yours, you can do with it whatever you want, right? Not in all of these cities. They say, hey, we have the right to come in for public safety. That way we can make sure that your house isn't going to cause a problem for anybody else, right? Which is crazy. Like, that's some real gray area there if you ask me. But they'll come in and check stuff like your electric panel. If it looks like this, it's going to be a problem, right? But this is why you have an inspection, and that's why you do things right. Also, if you have plugs like this, no ground, that could be a problem as well. So these are the things that a lot of times, if you don't know about the areas, you may not know about. And then in our particular situation, this client ended up having to spend, I think, $1,200 just to get these stupid little things fixed that probably would never be problems anyways, but the government wanted their money, right? So they had to get these things done before they could get any power turned on to the house, which is just nuts, right? If you think about it. Let me know what you think about that. But anyways, this next one as well also has a little bit to do with government and free water. Or is there free water?
While rainwater's okay, as soon as it touches the ground, it's a completely different ballgame. Now imagine you've got like a garden, or you want to do some cleaning on some exterior item on your house, and you just want to use the local creek or lake's water to take care of that, because, I mean, why pay for water if it's just right next to your house? Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, that could be a really costly mistake. You're gonna need a permit before you ever touch that water for any purpose like that, or it could land you in some, no pun intended, really hot water. And speaking of hot, while you can't bring your house to the water, a lot of people choose to bring water to their house and install a pool, especially with new builds. But you're definitely gonna wanna check out this next section, because you'll not believe what happened to one of our clients.
A lot of folks, when they move to Texas, first thing they say to their spouse is, hey, if we're moving to Texas, we're getting a pool. Because it's hot. It's hot. And a lot of times with a pool comes a deck. So one of the things that you want to make sure you do, if you do plan on buying a house, getting a pool or a deck, is one, make sure you get it permitted. So a lot of times these areas are going to require permits. They want to make sure you do it right, so you don't get these little saggy areas, all that kind of stuff. Stuff doesn't start to fall apart on you. And it's important you do this, because if not, people find out after the fact. A lot of times they make you rip it all out, then you're paying for it again. Not only that, pools, whole different animal here in Texas as well. So if you're from the north, a lot of times you winterize your pool, right? So in the winter you drain it. You don't want the water to freeze and crack your pool. Here in Texas, if you drain your pool, good chance it pops out of the ground, which is crazy to say, but that's a thing. I met a guy the other day, this is exactly what happened to him. Very expensive to fix that. So these are kind of the things that you need to know about if you're gonna do it. Also the financing end of it. So if you're gonna buy a pool after the fact, you're also gonna have to finance that. Sometimes it may be better just to buy a house that's a couple of years old that already has the pool. That way you're not coming out of pocket that extra money and doing that extra financing. So those are all things to think about if you're moving here and wanting to upgrade your backyard.
So if you're moving to Texas, we got this one thing that may shock you. Well, I mean, other than the weather, but if you live up north, these are actually pretty common. But down here, they're a terrible idea. So much so that less than 1 in every 100 listings has one of these. In other states, if you have a basement, it means you're lucky enough to have enough square footage to store all the things you don't, well, use on a regular basis. But in Texas, it means you have an absolute nightmare on your hands, and I'll show you why. So while it may be really cool to have a little extra room to put the kids when they come back from college, it can also mean a lot of really bad things, especially for your foundation, because in Texas, water is not our friend. It fights our foundation left and right to begin with, but when you got a basement, that water can come in and do terrible things. All of this drywall was cut out because water got soaked up into it whenever it flooded in here, and something like that could actually happen to you. As a matter of fact, it happened to Tom, and he's got a really interesting story about that firsthand.
So my dumbass, first year as a real estate agent, bought a split level house, and the bottom level was actually a few feet underground level. And so 2 weeks into buying that house, it flooded. Took me forever to figure out where the water was coming from. And I ended up basically cutting all the sheetrock out after it flooded so many times over the course of a couple years. Cause like, if it rained a little bit, no water. Rained a lot, water. Couldn't figure it out, right? And so what I ended up figuring out, as you can see over here, there's a bunch of cracks running through this foundation. It's very difficult. There's a lot of engineering involved if you want to do a basement in Texas, so it's not impossible. But on a lot of these older homes, they just weren't done right. And our soil is so bad, it shifts, it cracks. And so what happened was, I ended up tearing everything out. They have this red guard, like the stuff you put in showers. We painted the whole thing. And then I was like, oh, it's all good. Put it back together. $10,000 in renovations, right? And then 6 months later, water again. Opened up the other half of the house, found another crack, right? So by the time it was all done, like we spent over $25,000 just cutting stuff out, figuring it out, putting it all back together. Terrible, terrible time. Highly advise against it. But if you are gonna do it, you just need to know what you're getting into and make sure that you buy your house right.
If you do end up with a basement or a split level house below ground, make sure you get a good sump pump, because it can be the make or break. Whenever water comes in, you don't want it going into and pooling in your basement. You want it to get pumped out into the yard, or it could be game over. Speaking of game over, Tom had the cops called on him, and you'll never guess why.
A lot of people, when they're moving to Texas, they think, hey, I want land, I want this massive house, and I want to have animals, maybe horses, maybe cows, maybe goats, any of that kind of stuff. Well, I can tell you from experience, I had a roommate a few years back that brought home a couple of goats. I thought she was kidding about it. Turns out she wasn't. So anyways, 2 goats show up. Now I'm a baby goat dad. And anyways, about a week later, get a knock at the door. I answer it. It's the police asking if I have goats in my backyard. Of course, I'm like, yeah, I have goats. And he's like, yeah, you can't do that. You don't have enough land. You have to have so much land per goat, and we just didn't quite have enough. So fortunately, I got to name them. So Dingle and Barry were relocated to a nice farm somewhere in the countryside, I'm sure, where they lived out their days. And I learned a lesson. But if you are doing this, not only do you have to think about how much land do I have, but also you have to consider HOAs. If there is a HOA, what does it restrict? Deed restrictions, so that's another one a lot of people don't think about. Deed restrictions go along with the land. A lot of those don't allow for pigs, right? So if that's something you want to do, that's going to be a little bit more of a specialty. And then again, any kind of animal that you want to have outside of your normal dog and cat, or especially if you want to have multiple dogs, a lot of places restrict how many dogs you can have, but all of that becomes a factor when buying your property. So you never want to get here, buy a place, think you have enough land, and then find out you can't own the animals and live that dream out. So that's definitely one of the reasons you give us a shot. Now this next one we're going to be talking about is not as prevalent as in the crotch of Texas. You know, I'm talking about Houston, but it is an issue that comes up here, and Jack's going to tell you all about that one.
Now this next one's crazy because it costs someone we know over $20,000. It can be really nice to have running water somewhere close to the house, maybe like a babbling brook or a gentle stream for the kids to go play in when it's hot. But this one thing could be a complete deal killer for some people. We had this client we knew who ended up buying a house, and his first mistake was not working with us whenever he did that, but his second mistake was when he went to go list it, he listed it for exactly what that house was worth. But he forgot this one thing. He had a stream at the back of his house, and so he was in a floodplain, and all of the buyers that were able to afford his house weren't able to afford the $150 a month on top of that they had to pay for flood insurance, and it really screwed him over. He lost over $20,000 getting an offer that lowballed him way below what he was expecting to get just because he didn't reach out to us and plan a little bit better. Now, there's a couple of things people don't know about flood insurance that it takes a really knowledgeable realtor to look out for you. One of them is floodplains can change. What was a floodplain last year may not be a floodplain next year, and vice versa. And another really big one people don't know is that your house itself doesn't need to be in the floodplain for you to be liable for flood insurance, just your property. Small little details like this can literally be the make or break when it comes to buying your new home, and you don't want to be stuck with the bill. And if you're really scared of water now that I got you on the hook, you're definitely going to want to check out this next one.
Now this one could cost you a little bit down the road. It's probably not going to be an immediate expense, but it's something that you need to think about. So these are our sewer pipes coming out. This is new construction. Now, whether you're buying new construction or especially pre-existing, but even on new construction, one of the things you got to think about is right now that sewer pipe's already laid. They've come out here, you can see they've dumped dirt over here. They've also put brick pallets down. Over the course of the next few months as they finish out this build, there's actually going to be a ton of other stuff that they come up and drop. There's going to be people driving all over it. That dirt's getting compacted. And a lot of times what could happen is those pipes actually break, or the connections on them do. And so a lot of times when you get an inspection, they're going to test your fixtures, make sure everything drains okay. But one of the things that we highly recommend all of our clients doing is actually get a plumber out and put a camera down the pipe so you can actually see. There's actually a situation where somebody had bought a house, they went to sell it, they bought it brand new, right? And you think, oh, everything's great, I did an inspection. Well, when they went to sell it, they found out that there was a break in their pipe underneath their driveway, right? So they had to tear part of the driveway out to get to that pipe. It ended up costing them about $7,000 to get that one fixed, when if they had just, spent $200 at the beginning to get it addressed, the builder would have taken care of that expense for them. So this is one of those things, especially if you're buying pre-existing homes. Now on pre-existing homes, anything built before 1980 has a good chance of having cast iron in it. Cast iron only lasts for so long and then it gets brittle and crumbles. And right now, we're in that time frame where a lot of it is breaking down. So if you are buying something pre-existing, that is an absolute must. It could save you thousands of dollars. That one could hit you a lot sooner. But anyways, this next one is a little bit of a doozy. This is a DIY hack, which if you do it, it can actually void your insurance.
We most typically see this mistake when people convert garages for a little extra living space. You wall and insulate off your garage door, and then you've just gotten rid of one of your points of egress, which could land you some hot water with insurance. And not to mention that you could also be hit with a very severe fine depending on where you're at. And if you don't like paying unnecessary money that you don't absolutely have to, you're gonna wanna check out this next tip. Otherwise, you could fall into a tax blunder.
If you're buying new construction here, especially new construction, property taxes can really get you if you don't know what you're doing or if you don't have a good lender. But also if you're buying pre-existing. So this is a big one. And then I'm also gonna share a couple hacks with you. But One of the things you need to know if you're looking on Zillow or Realtor.com, when you see property taxes, that is the amount that they were taxed the previous year. So let's say that you're buying a $500,000 house and you're looking at the property taxes and you're like, oh my gosh, $6,000 a year, we can swing that. You do all your math. Well, one of the things that's gonna happen is once you buy that house for $500,000, let's say your property taxes are at 2%. Well, once you buy it, that next year, it's actually going to readjust those, and it's probably gonna jump up to $10,000. Now, if you don't have a good real estate agent or lender, they may not tell you that. The other thing, with the new construction, a lot of times that's taxed as land. They don't have the new house on there, so it's taxed as land. You buy it, all of a sudden, you get this big tax bill, or your escrow account is way underfunded because nobody told you this, right? So that's why it's important to have a really good team working with you. Of course, we'd love to be that team for you. You can always reach out to us. Now, if you are looking to save money, that's the other thing, property taxes, all sorts of differences. If you're inside city limits, they're gonna be a lot higher. Typically around here, 2.2, 2.3%, pretty average. A lot of areas are a lot lower than that. If you get outside of city limits, a lot of times you can see them at like 1.5. So depending on where you land, all of this is gonna change. That's why you wanna have somebody that really knows the area. Now, if you are just catching our videos for the first time, we have a ton more if you're moving to the Dallas area. We've got all kinds of stuff. We're gonna recommend our map tour next to get you familiar with the area. But if you wanna do a deep dive, we've got videos on all the neighborhoods, all the best places to live. And if you are looking to buy or sell, remember to keep calm, call Tom.